everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Warren Files. We have some amazing guests with us. Many of you guys know who a lot of these people are on our show, and I want to welcome Nicole to her first ever The Warren Files. Thank you for joining us today, Nicole.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And happy birthday, Nicole.
Yes.
Hey,
happy belated birthday. We are going to be discussing haunted collection or collecting haunted objects. And there's a lot of debate over this, whether it should be done, whether it shouldn't be done. I know a lot of people commented on this event when I posted it several weeks ago. This one is more or less on if you are going to have a haunted object, A, how to take care of it, and B, how it's not recommended if you don't know what you're dealing with. So I'm going to let our panel guests get started with, do you guys have any experience with haunted objects?
None. Sorry.
None. Yeah, we can start with Philip. He has one.
Yes, I know dolls creep people out, but they don't creep me out. Well, there's one exception, and I gave a nod to her in the opening video, as you see her very briefly. That's all we're going to mention about her. But yeah, my doll back here, Paul. Yeah, dolls don't creep me out so much. People creep me out, not dolls.
So tell us a little bit about that thing.
Well, several years ago, a friend of mine knew that I kind of had my eye out for, I just wanted a fun, creepy looking doll just for fun, for display. And this friend of mine texted me this picture. She was at an antique store about an hour and a half north of Atlanta. And she said, I found you something. And as soon as I saw that picture, it was like love at first sight. It was so strange. I was so drawn to this doll. And I knew right away there was something different about it. It wasn't just a doll. So I got a friend and talked him into taking the drive to this store. It was way out in the middle of the country in North Georgia. And I went in and I showed them the picture, and they're like, oh my God, it's over there on aisle so-and-so. We don't want to deal with it. I was like, oh, okay. So that was an interesting thing for the salespeople to say. So I walked down the aisle and I just there, well, I'll say he, and I'll explain that later. But I saw it and I was like, okay, you're going home with me, but we're going to do this properly because I'm not sure what the situation is with you. And we're going, to talk about how to handle possible haunted objects. I had brought a big plastic case with a lid on it, and I put black tourmaline in it, black salt, some pink Himalayan salt, and a few other protective things. So I have the doll at the register, and the lady says, I am so glad that thing's getting out of here. It creeps us all out. And I was like, okay, I don't want to know anything else. So I just brought it home, left him in the garage in the salt just to see what may happen, if anything weird would happen, because I wasn't going to bring it like inside my house until I got some kind of feel on the doll. So after a few days, I really didn't feel anything negative with it. I thought, okay, I'm going to do some testing on it. Set him up here on my table. I wired him up to a trigger device that if the EMF changed or something, it was like a REM pod, it would go off. And right away, it started going off. I'm like, okay, I think I've got something here. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do an ITC session. So I got the spirit box, turned it on, and he started talking right away. I mean, it said Paul. This was his sister's doll. They were from England. I mean, all this came out, and the video is on he's got his own Facebook page with a lot of followers. And it was his sister's doll. He loved his sister, and when she passed, somehow he got attached to the doll. Just told us a lot. 8 years old. The sister, oh my gosh, her name went right out of my head. I'm sorry. And there was nothing negative. I could just tell there was nothing negative. So I just said, just call me Uncle Philip. You can stay here as long as you behave. You can wander around if you want. You have to be back in the house by midnight. And never had a problem. Now, I do have a friend who said Paul comes and visits her at night sometimes in her dreams because she would go on his page and say, "Hi, Paul. Nice to see you." So, I mean, that's his story. So,
We should point out to everyone that you're a psychic. You can sense these things as well. You're well aware that this is not something negative.
no.
Um,
But
Having
you have to be
said that-
careful. I had to be
Yes.
careful. I wasn't going to take a chance. Things can fool you sometimes. Things can pretend. We all know that. So, I wasn't going to bring it home just in a paper bag. I made sure there was protection around it. So I put some intent into the protection, and just to be careful. I wasn't going to take any chance of bringing in, another Annabelle. So, all's been good.
And that's something interesting to me. I don't always agree with the things that my grandfather believed.
Mhm.
My grandfather said when he went and with my grandmother to see Annabelle for the first time, that he knew immediately it had to be demonic because God would never allow a child to be attached to an inanimate object. Now, I don't actually have an opinion one way or the other on this. I've had lots of people tell me that their dolls are attached to human spirits. I personally have not spoken to any spirits that were attached to dolls, so I can't say for sure. But it's fascinating to me. Now, Ken, you have something pretty interesting as well. Now, I should preface this by saying the foundation does not own the Warren Museum. We are not responsible for it. That belongs to my mother and her husband. Of course, I know a number of the stories, but not a lot, mostly because, once a case is over, I don't really pay a lot of attention to it. My job is to help the next person who's coming. Here's where I get to deliver my core message, which is the worst part of my grandparents' legacy is that they ever called this collection of theirs a museum. It's not. And I don't agree with collecting objects simply because I have seen too many people hurt by trying to collect these things. It was never open to the public as as a business or anything. It was only ever open like to classes and to special seminars, things like that. And even now, we can't even do that because of a change in zoning laws. But we had a case, I'm going to say 2 years ago. And the woman, I don't want to give too many details away, but she had a job where she would enter a lot of houses and she would be allowed to take what she wanted because these were houses that were about to be redone completely. And she had just enough talent, psychically speaking, that she could pick out when something had some kind of attachment to it. And unfortunately, she created her own little museum. And then she started having lots and lots of problems. And we could not convince her that the problem was that. She just was certain that it was because her boyfriend and her son were drinking in a graveyard. The spirits got angry, and so they're bothering her now. No, that's not it. And yes, if you wish, I'll talk a little bit about some of the items in the museum. But first, let's get back to Ken, Father Ken Torres, who just got his Doctorate of Divinity, excuse me.
Yes.
We got an object that you're holding on to for us. And could you talk about that?
Yes. So the object I have in my hand is a 200-year-old painting. Currently here sits in my office, my office is sealed. It's blessed with holy water, white salt, and a couple of other accoutrements. And so we originally received this item, and allegedly this item was causing a lot of activity towards another group. A lot of bad things. I can't really remember what it was. But I decided that I was going to take responsibility for it. And so when I received it, like I said, I prayed for it, I blessed it. It sits in a certain place. I haven't had any issues. There haven't been any problems. So that also leads me to believe to a lot of with these haunted objects, in my opinion, too. I think there's a hype behind it. You know, a person hears something and it's like it's haunted, right? Especially that's very common amongst paranormal investigators. You know, we're always looking for the hunt, where it's the thrill of the hunt. It's something that's, oh wow, it's unknown. So I do think many times a lot of these objects, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on it, and they give it the power in the sense, kind of like self manifestation. But
Exactly.
I have not had any power, any issues with it at all. I do think that if you are going to have a haunted object, so to speak, just please be careful and make sure you know what you're doing. It's highly important, just like, you know, what Phil does, right? He's a psychic. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to protect himself. He knows how to ground himself. That's one of the utmost important things that you need to do. Also, I don't recommend doing it. A lot of situational awareness that takes place with owning a haunted item as well. You know, if you have a bad personal life, bad marriage, bad health, a lot of these things can be affected as well once you start collecting these items and they're in your possession. So just be cognizant of the repercussions of collecting these items. If you're going to do it, just be careful.
I mean,
Well,
I have to say,
as Heather Scarborough just points out here, when you believe in something enough, it becomes a reality. I mean, no, I'm not going to become king of the world just because I believe in it, or I'm not going to be Jesus Christ like,
Yeah.
75 other guys in the mental institution. But having said that, we can manifest our greatest fears. We can. And it happens only occasionally and only in exceptional conditions. But if you start to believe that that object that you're holding on to is haunted, as Ken mentioned, then you can start to manifest those fears in that doll and create your own attachment or egregore being a thought form that takes on a life of its own. Now, Nicole, you've got some experience with these objects as well. You've done a little collecting. You want to talk about that? I mean, you've got a book about this, don't you?
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. But I've always been drawn to those items for some reason. And I actually had one particular doll named Emily. And I actually thought she was very positive, nothing negative. And so I actually lent her to a friend of mine. He's also a paranormal investigator. And he said he had nothing but positive results from her. So he sent it back. So, yeah. That's in my book by haunted vessels and cursed objects.
There's a message here from Claudia Engel King Williams. I'm sorry, Claudia, I don't know anything about this, but if you reach out to us again, we'd be happy to talk to you. I'm not sure that you actually reached out to any of us. Having said that, I do talk to dozens, if not more, people every day. So I apologize if it was me you spoke with.
I just want to reiterate that I'm not one of these paranormal investigators looking for the negative. That's just not me. And if this doll that I brought home showed any sign of any negativity, it would have been gone in an instant. I would not have held on to it. I'm not stupid. I don't need negative attachments in my life. You know,
No.
I've got enough to worry about. But so there was nothing but love I felt with this object. And I have to say, I don't believe he's here anymore because I had his mother come get him. That was a couple years ago. He hasn't made a peep in a couple years, but I still think he's beautiful. Yeah, we did I didn't want him here to stay here, attached to this earth.
No.
For whatever reason, he was still here. So, we had a little session and had Mom come with some help from the other side. So, I wasn't going to keep a kid trapped in a doll just for fun. I mean, that's just not what we do. There's some people that get a thrill and adrenaline rush off of what they call evil possessed dolls. And I don't understand the thrill behind it when you're dealing with something like, why do you want something that negative in your life around you, which can affect you physically and mentally?
Yeah. I
just
don't understand that either.
understand it.
I think it's movies.
Denise Empey makes a good point here that a majority of times toys aren't so much haunted as they are trigger objects for child spirits. I do think this is something I learned from another researcher years ago, and I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I hadn't thought of it at that point. But, bringing not only age appropriate, but period appropriate items to a home. So if you're dealing with a Civil War home and you believe that there are children in that home from the Civil War, bringing toys from that era may get them to interact with you more. And I think that's a lovely idea.
Yeah, those trigger objects are good.
Yeah.
We're in a Civil War house Saturday night, and we brought a rocking horse, jacks, those kind of things. You don't bring a fire truck.
No, they wouldn't know what it is.
I mean, so yeah, you need to think like they would think. What are they accustomed to? But yeah.
Hey, there's some point I want to bring up here, and I'm not going to be on for the full show. I apologize, everyone. I got a sinus infection or something, and I'm just worn out. But the reason we took that Jesus painting is because it is 200 years old, and I just didn't want it destroyed. It seemed sacrilegious to me. Having said that, what I do suggest you do, if you have haunted objects, don't burn them, because that just releases the tether to whatever energy is attached to that object. And don't throw it away. Sometimes it comes back. Other times other people pick it up and you're just making it worse for them. Take it far from any home, far from your property. Don't be on your property. Dig a hole a foot deep. Consecrate the ground with holy water or blessed salt. Put the object in the hole, cover it up, consecrate it again, and never, ever go back. That's what you do. It grounds out the awful energies. They slip into the earth to be ground out, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. That's the best way to deal with these haunted objects. The other point I wanted to make for everyone, there is this market online for haunted objects. And anybody can tell a good story and tell you that it's haunted and try to sell you some ridiculously stupid thing that shouldn't be worth $1 for thousands. Do not waste your money. Not only is it probably fake, but if it isn't fake, you're just exposing yourself to danger.
What was the original story behind this painting anyway? I forgot. I take it with a grain of salt, and it was just okay, no biggie.
Yeah,
Let me look it up and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, one team bought it from another person. Then they started having problems, supposedly, and they didn't want to destroy it, so they reached out to us to ask us to take it from them. And I didn't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I didn't think that there was much to it.
I mean, and if there was, and I think it was all environmental, in the environment it was placed in. And I think that goes a lot to do with the home cleansing situation. A lot of times as investigators, depending how many investigations you do, you can idealistically go to any place and have an attachment, and that attachment can, cause a lot of different things to happen. And, it can even focus on one object, and it's going to make you think that it's that object itself. I took a course with the Vatican, and it was about haunted objects, demonic objects. And one of the recommendations that they used to do in ancient Judaic times and Babylonian times is they would have a lot of magic sigils on of these objects. And so their recommendation was through the training that if you destroy the sigils on these objects, then you render it powerless and useless. So if you destroy the sigils, then you do the same thing that you had mentioned, bury it with holy water. That idealistically should stop any attack or activity that's going on.
Now, there's a difference in an object having an attachment or being possessed or haunted, um, to being an object holding an energy. All objects can hold energy. They can hold negative energy. They can hold positive energy. They can hold love, hate, and some mediums have the gift of psychometry where they can hold, not all of them have to hold it. Some can look at a picture and do it and get the story of the object. That does not mean it's possessed or it's haunted. That is a mediumship gift of reading the energy of the object. The spirit is not in the object. They're reading the energy of the object. So I don't want people to confuse that with that being a spirited haunted object. But psychometry is very interesting. I can't do psychometry. I've tried it. It's just not something I can do. But it's something people should look into. It's really interesting how people can just take an object and just read everything about it, where it's from, who had it, their life. It's really a fascinating gift.
It is.
Well,
I have a very small ability to get whether something is negative, positive. If it's got some attachment, if it's carrying some energy that might be, sorry, I'm thinking in Spanish again. Might be too heavy for the household, and then we ask them to take it out and bury it, or we'll do it for them.
Yeah, I found the story for the painting Father Kenneth has, if you want me to read it.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Well, minus any identifying details.
No, I'm going to go into full detail and give addresses and
names, social security numbers.
Look, I'm feverish. Leave me alone. I apologize.
Okay, so background on how we obtained it. We purchased it from a man in Florida. He said he bought it from an auction in Tennessee. He had it for about 4 months and became desperate to get rid of it. After about 3 weeks, he started to see a hooded figure walking around. It had been placed on a mantle of his living room, and candles would spontaneously light themselves. She had purchased it and then heard nothing for almost a week, and she thought that he had scammed her because she really thought she was buying a haunted object. Turns out he had gotten really sick, and he was eventually able to have his friend send it. So he didn't send it, is basically what she's saying. So she thought she lost out on it. She received it mid-January. Their intention was to work with the item and try to see if it was really negative. They rented a storage unit, prepared it by staging and using blessed white salt inside the perimeter. As Christians, they used different items, candle holders, beeswax from an Eastern Orthodox monastery to create an altar for the icon. They hoped to bring it back to its original purpose. The storage unit was going to be used for other items that they were intending to purchase and collect and store away. The other item that they placed in the unit was a doll, and they were not entirely sure of her nature, the doll's nature. They just wanted to keep it safe and away from the family until they investigated it more. The first investigation they did, the husband was the one who initially opened the box. She said, "Note, we are not mediums, but we do have psychic abilities that we're working on increasing." He said he felt the energy in the item immediately. He told her later that he was drawn to the part of the icon that was still good. He said he saw an image as if he was looking at a person, which was a monk or a priest, who was actually painting it. He only saw the hands of the person painting it, but he could feel the love and devotion. She was more in tune to the negative side. The K2 meter started spiking into the red, which never happens on any of their previous investigations. They started getting a lot of words on their app, such as snake, demon, priest, Michael, a whole bunch of other things. They said that they discovered it was 100 to 200 years old. They involved demonologists, priests, and a few other people in the field to help them seal it and protect it, but then the activity had increased, and I'm just skimming through it real fast because it's really long. And then they were trying to find someone to take it from the storage unit because it's not going to work anymore. The lady who managed the storage unit says that whenever she's driving by, that she notices things and they're not allowed to keep it there.
Now, here's the situation. You've got one person seeing the love and light of an object and the other person seeing the negative side of an object. So what is the psychological situation of each of these people? Is the negative person depressed or drinking? What is their background? And then what is the background of the person who sees the light of it? You got to look at these things too, rather than that's the object. What's their psychological situation?
And you also have to look at the intentionality behind it. For example, a lot of people forget the intention. So when you have an object and you get an object, and let's say that that object was created with with an ill intention from the original owner, and that owner passes away, and now you take hold of that object, that intentionality is still behind that item. So now it's up to you as a person to create a new intention, a new divine and positive intention to break that old intention, because what you're doing is you're essentially inheriting a curse. And so I think many people forget is that you have to go back to the original intention. Many people don't know what it is, which is why when I go to a place, for example, the lady down the street, our neighbor, she passed away. She was 72 years old. She passed away. She used to make these beautiful rag dolls for children for Christmas. And so they had a yard sale, and I picked it up, and it was a beautiful thing. The daughter-in-law said, well, I didn't really like it. She was scared of it. Well, the daughter-in-law didn't really get along with her, but I have it here on my shelf, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's a constant reminder of the beautiful things that she did for her community. And I have not had any issues. For me, it's a little different as well too. It's not that I'm spiritually disconnected. It's because I try to guard myself. Same thing I do when I go into an investigation. The stories are great. All of these things are great that you're telling me, but I'm going to go there to disprove it. I'm not going to let someone else's experiences influence my decision. So I have to be guarded. And so many times, a lot of people will feel these different things. Well, this is going on. But as soon as I get there, I don't feel anything and I don't see anything, and maybe it's because I'm guarded, or maybe because sometimes the energy is not there or it doesn't want to show itself. But the purpose that I'm trying to get to is the original intention of these items. You have to take that into consideration.
Right. So quick question for you. This is going to just kind of be out of left field, I guess you would say. Since you're talking about changing the intention on an object, do you think if the intention towards Annabelle were changed, she could be pleasant?
I think so. I think so. Because the problem is now Hollywood has created this world. Everyone has created this world with Annabelle in it. There's movies, there's objects, everything. So now there's this lore behind it. There's this power behind it. It's been essentially glorified. And so I do think potentially, the intentionality can be changed, and it could be for the positive. But I think for all intents and purposes, we know why it's not going to be like that. I mean, and I'll keep it at that.
Yep.
And that's just my opinion. And these are just my opinions.
Yep.
That's all. What do you think, Heather?
I truly believe in that. It's one of those things. It's with the self-manifestation. You get from what you put into it. So if you put enough love and light into something, it can be changed, and you can self-manifest it.
You're also going up against about 1 billion fans of Annabelle as a horror monster. So good luck.
Yeah.
You're the one
now.
Yeah.
Don't fear the dog.
And that doesn't negate the negative stuff that's happened. Obviously, there's stuff that's been happened, that it has to be questioned and has to be considered. For example, the priest that took Annabelle, and he totaled his car. I do think that there is a negative intention. There was something negative behind it, and now it's sealed and it's protected. And so, for all intents and purposes, I'll leave the conversation at that.
Right. Well, it's no different than turning your life around. If you have a bad past, you can still turn your life around and be successful in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I'm living proof of that one. I will say, because we're talking about Annabelle, I have my doubts. And it's not because I think Annabelle's a demon. I don't. I think Annabelle is a thought form that was created when nurses went from first filling it with energy and it reacting to then becoming creeped out by what they'd created. And it then became dangerous. Mm-hmm. And as more and more and more people over the years were fascinated by it and challenged it and abused it, it manifested in that way. I just can't imagine, and maybe this is a failing on my part, but I can't imagine a world where people all of a sudden start thinking of Santa Claus as Satan or Annabelle as an angel. I don't see us having the ability to make that kind of title shift.
Right. And if it really was a demon or is a demon, do you think he's running around excited that he achieved his goal by becoming famous and in the movies? I mean, just
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, honestly,
actually,
do we think that that's what their goal is? To glorify
Well, you know,
themselves and hey, look at us.
I'm a
I
movie
don't know.
so
star.
so when it comes to traditional, we'll talk about Catholic, exorcisms. Demons in general, they want to be known. They want to manifest themselves. They want the world to know that they exist. And so that's why many times during exorcisms they'll do all these different types of feats, and they're very vain. So that's not to say that if there is a demon, he's probably like, yeah, but he's not making any money off of it. But the power is there. The power is there. And egregore
Oh,
or
the power's
tulpa, it's
there.
there. It's already there. And once again, I'm not trying to negate the activity that's happened. I do believe that regardless, you still have to protect yourself at all costs. Like they say in a boxing ring, protect your face at all times. That's just how it is.
Well,
My
let me
question
ask,
is-
let me ask a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. And this actually would apply to all of you. First off, why is it that things like dolls and religious objects are the things that are most likely to have an attachment? Well, that's the first question. Let's start with that.
I'll chime in real quick on my theory on the dolls. It's because they're already a human shape
Yes.
and they're attracted. It's comfortable. They
Absolutely.
don't have to relearn the movements.
Yeah.
It's basically going from their human body to another body that just so happens to be in doll form.
That's interesting.
It's like a life vest to a drowning person.
Mm-hmm.
They're grabbing a hold of it and going to hold on to it because they don't want to go. And
it's a common object. I mean, could you imagine a demon possessing a toaster or the coffee maker?
oh, I had one of those.
Oh, God.
You had a haunted coffee maker?
No, toaster oven.
Gotta hear
Time
the
to see
story
the
on that, man.
electrician. Seriously?
Yeah.
No, I want to hear that story. But first, here's my theory, and it is only a theory. But I believe that dolls and religious objects, icons, have attachments or manifestations more often than other things because we identify with them more. We pour our energy into them more. It's why, for instance, Philip's doll was loved by that little girl. And when that little boy died, he created an attachment to his sister's doll. For me, it's far more about the emotion that we put into it and that intention. It's why my mother can still have my teddy bear from when I was a child. And I'm sure there's plenty of love in that doll because I carried it everywhere for many years. So, that's my theory. And same thing with religious icons. Because of devotion, because of that energy that's poured into it, they can take on tremendous power and be very good. Having said that, once people start to think of it as something evil or awful, they can turn that energy, which gets us back to Heather's original question about Annabelle. This icon of Jesus Christ that we have has been loved for centuries. And yet now, because a few people had a bad experience that may have far more to do with something else than that object, they have imbued that object with their own negativity and their own fears. That's my idea.
It's like the priest who had the accident after seeing Annabelle. What was his driving record? How many speeding tickets does he have? How many accidents has he had prior? Was he a horrible driver?
Was it late? Yeah, was it late night? Was he tired? Did he not have enough coffee? I tell you what I see with this object. With this object, I see something beautiful. I see the fact that we were able to, for me, the fact that we were actually able to help people who were really terrified of something. People who understood that, hey, this may be outside the realm and the scope of their nature and their capacity. And so I see this as a beautiful icon that has been preserved, and the fact that we were able to help people get rid of this item. And so hopefully now, if they're listening or watching, hoping that you have a better life because this object is no longer, in your environment. Yeah, and that's what I see. I see us. This is something beautiful that we were able to help somebody with. And that's really what the foundation is all about. It's all about helping people. We'll come here. We all have difference in opinions, and it's okay to always have a difference in opinion. If we all sat here and agreed with the same thing, then we wouldn't be unique. And for me, that's just a testament to how beautiful and diverse the foundation is. You know, I obviously don't know the skills that Philip has. Like, he's a wonderful person. I love him to death. Everyone here on this panel, I love him to death. We all have something unique and different. And so when we come to here in academia, you know, with this panel, these are just all opinions. And if you find yourself not agreeing with us, hey, that's okay. You know, that's what this world is all about.
I have a question. As investigators, have any of you ever removed an object from a client's house that they thought there was something wrong with?
Sure, of course, many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did when I was back in Vegas, and hopefully Brent is able to get on in the next 20 minutes. He was driving home from work, and he's the one who still has the objects that we took from a client's home.
Well,
over the years, we've done that many times. Especially when it's creepy clown dolls. God, I hate those damn things.
We
Just
only
recently,
did it
yeah.
once. Yeah.
Just
There
recently,
were a couple of questions here I just wanted to quickly answer. Bob Burnell asked, do I think it's foolish to carry around Annabelle if she's so dangerous? Yeah, I do. And I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's something my grandfather would have done, but it's not mine. It's not my responsibility. As for Zach Baggins and his museum, the man's a showman. He's P.T. Barnum for our age, for the paranormal
I've
world.
been there. I've been there. I went there 2 years ago with my wife, and honestly, I didn't feel anything. I mean, there was just some energy. There was one young lady who was from Germany, and she was being really disrespectful towards the Dybbuk box. And so when we left the Dybbuk area, she crashed. She started throwing up. She got pale, and she had to be escorted out. Now, my whole thing with that is like, you know, my wife and I were telling her, hey, you know, just be cognizant of the environment you're in. There's a lot of different energies here. There's a lot of different things that are collected. A lot of them may or may not be haunted, but you still have to show some form of respect. And I think that's what a lot of people do forget. You know, whether or not you believe in the object, whether it's haunted or not, you should still show some sort of respect towards that object. I mean, it's all about respect, and really that's what it is. And so I don't know if it was just her imagination, you know, running wild, but she got really, really sick. She actually touched the Dybbuk box. She wasn't supposed to, and who knows? But I do know my wife said that she had an earring, and it just fell off her ear, and she just left the earring on the floor. She's like, I'm not bringing it back home. So, you know, she's not all with this mumbo jumbo. As a matter of fact, that's why my office is sealed. And when I do these shows, she's like, I don't want to be in the office. Let me know when you're done. I don't want to be there. I don't want to hear anything about this, because then she starts breaking out. She's sensitive. So.
Yeah. One more thing about Zach Baggins. He's very careful about making it sound like he's got objects that once belonged to my grandparents. But he never actually says that. But he alludes to it. And so
the devil's rocking chair.
That some of these objects that are attached to cases of my grandparents actually came from the museum. They didn't. We will never sell. Well, I would never sell anything out of that museum. What Tony would do, I'm not sure, but I don't think he would do that.
Yeah. Well, he says that he has the devil's rocking chair.
The museum is in Las Vegas, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So no, he doesn't have anything of ours. He has nothing from my family. No. I don't even think the man believes in the paranormal, to be quite honest.
One thing he is for sure, he has been the trendsetter when it comes to the paranormal. But for me, I still like the older shows. For me, I've always liked the Ghost Hunters, the original Ghost Hunters with Jay and Grant. For me, that was one of the most honest ways of conducting investigations with their equipment. You know, they always tried to debunk. And so for me, I still love the Ghost Hunters team. To me, those guys are legit. They're nice. And I think they do investigations the way we do it. You know, they try to scientifically prove everything, whether, you know, paranormal or not. And I like that avenue. You know, Zach Baggins, the Ghost Adventures, that's just more, it's more entertainment. You know, it's like, oh, no, there have been some things that have been caught, you know, but, you know, you're not there. So you don't know what's on the other side of the camera. You don't know the production that goes behind it, the script and all that. So.
That brings something up. I was at a house Saturday night in Tennessee that was on Travel Channel Haunted Live. I don't know what year it was, a year or two ago. And this team did a reenactment of an amputation because this house was used as a hospital in the Civil War. And they did not ask permission from the person who owns the house. The team, I was told, did not want to do that, but their producers made them do it because of the sensationalism of it being live on television. I mean, the producers made them do it. Yeah, the people.
It's always the producers. That's why I
Yeah.
would never do one of these reality programs. The producers are the ones that are telling the people on camera how to act, how to respond. You can't produce a haunting on a television production schedule.
No.
I've watched 3 episodes of these paranormal programs in my life. I wouldn't bother with them. And I tell every client, if you're in the middle of something, if you're being bothered by something, do not watch these paranormal programs. Most of them are absolute crap from what I know.
And you can make your equipment react when you don't use it properly. And these people were doing that with the tri-field meter. They're walking around with it. Well, we're bioenergetic. We create our energy. A natural tri-field meter will react to us. Our walkie-talkies will make our REM pods go nuts from another room. So that's one thing where after we're finished setting up, walkie-talkies are turned off. You know, they could have had a cameraman clicking the walkie-talkie button. There's ways to make it look like something's happening on these TV shows.
Yeah.
So don't believe. I'm just saying, don't believe everything you're seeing on.
No, and don't copy what they show, because the 3 times I've watched these programs and the sad stories I've heard from others, what they do on these programs would get you killed if you were in an actual dangerous place. So no, please. Some of these jackasses literally invite spirits into them. I mean, what?
Yeah, not real bright.
No.
So I have a close friend of mine that lives here in Sacramento, and she went on Ghost Adventures. I won't say her name because she's ill right now, but ever since she came from that show 2 to 3 years ago, her health has deteriorated completely. She's been to the hospital more than 20, 30 times. And I do believe it's because of the interaction that she had on the show, how she had to do things on cue, and she's a psychic in sense, and so I do believe that irritating the spirits, something could have happened. I mean, call it coincidence, maybe coincidence, but there are still repercussions to doing these types of things. We're not saying that it's not all real. These things are real, but there is always a risk factor.
Franco Sursosimo, from Costa Rica, one of my favorite places in the world, was asking about these amulets of protection, things like that. First off, he mentions also quartz, metals. There's differences here. Crystals focus energy differently. I believe that. That's scientific. And each one channels energy differently. And I believe that they can have an effect because of their crystalline structure. As for religious items, the belief in them is what's necessary. Not just yours, but the belief of others over the centuries and millennia. People believing that the cross or the Ankh or the Star of David has power, puts power into that. But if you don't share that, if you don't share those beliefs, it doesn't work for you. You have to believe as well. So I hope that answers the question. But if anybody wants to help with the others, could they be haunted? Can they be cleaned after haunted? What are your ideas?
I had a situation a few days ago. I was with one of my team members who tried giving me something, and I said, "Oh no, I don't want it." I got really, really ill, and it was something that she had for protection. And I guess it did its job. Something happened, and it protected her. But without her telling me anything, I felt really, really sick and really ill when I saw the object. And it was a cross. It was a cross. It was a black I think it was black tourmaline cross, and I did not like it. I was like, nope, I don't want it. You know what I mean? So what we did is, we prayed for it, and then she tossed it over to the pier into the ocean, and that's it. And ever since then, she's feeling fine. She's feeling better. No attacks. So,
Yeah, somebody else was asking about throwing things in the ocean.
that was Sam Turtle,
I've
my
heard
other
that
team
salt
member.
water can be a good way of also negating energies.
Yeah.
Well, salt's supposed to be protective and cleansing
Exactly.
if it's a salt water ocean.
Yeah.
And
You would think.
salt is actually throughout all the cultures that I can think of. It's
Mhm.
extraordinary how that one thing seems to be the one that people use the most around the world. People keep asking about the museum. Listen, 3 or 4 times a year, Tony Spera, Spera, he's my stepfather. He holds a presentation called An Evening with Annabelle, where he puts on a few items on display at a local restaurant. I think he's now doing some of these Paracons. I've never been to one yet. But yeah, that's where you'll be allowed to see a few items. But not at the museum. It's never going to be open to the public as long as it's where it is.
Hey, Nicole,
Plus,
you're awful quiet.
I'm
Do you have
old.
any suggestions?
I don't want to run it.
Sophie in everything. I love you. Listening to you guys. But I do like to wear crystals myself. I have one right here. It's an amethyst. I read that it's supposed to help open up your psychic abilities. And I like to wear black obsidian. I wear that bracelet. It's also good for protection.
Also, if you combine these crystals with clear quartz, it will amplify their energy and their ability to work better for you. There are easy ways to cleanse crystals. And Heather, being the lovely pagan that you are, why don't you explain to people how to do that? Because I can talk about running water and everything else, but you can get into all the fun stuff.
Yeah, there are several different ways you could do it. If you want to actually cleanse and almost reset your crystal, I always suggest putting it out for the new moon. It's basically a new beginning. You could also put your crystals out during the sunlight and have the sun reset your crystals for you. You could also running water. I find the best way to do it is to take it to a stream and use natural water, even though you can use your faucet water. But make sure
put them
that
in a bag first. If you're going to put them in the stream, put them in a bag so you can find them later.
A little mesh baggie or something.
Yeah.
But make sure that it's not selenite or any other type of crystal like that, because those will dissolve. I've had that happen. It's a learning process. There are so many different ways. You can also, if you don't have the capabilities of leaving your crystals outside for long periods of time, you can take a mixture of sage oil, and I use sage and citrus oil mixed with witch hazel, and you can spray. Actually, if you go to our Warren Foundation classes, there's a free class on how to make my sage oil, and I use that to help cleanse the crystals. I also use that to cleanse myself when I come into the house after doing an investigation. There are so many different things that you can do, and it's more or less what you believe in, because if you don't believe any of these things will work, they're not going to cleanse your crystals. I've also used ocean water to clean the crystals.
I find it interesting that you have to believe for them to be cleansed.
Yeah, I personally, that's how I feel, because I mean, a lot of people will not believe. It's almost like not believing your house is cleared of an energy, or not believing something is going to work.
Oops.
Oh, I was wondering what was going on with her.
Well, I have a question. Do you think some of these things like crystals and like Nicole's bracelet can be just mental triggers to make you change your thought processes? Like she looks at it and she knows that's protection. I'm being protected. Like I have a Buddha statue
that will
on my
strengthen
deck.
it. I agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
I'm not Buddhist, but when I look at this statue when I'm sitting on my deck, it reminds me to center, calm, ground. It's a symbol for me to
Mhm.
And when I see it, I'll change the way I'm thinking. So I'm wondering if some of these things, Crystal, what's like sage? It's a ritual. It's to change our thought processes into a different direction and a different energy form of thought.
Well, actually, sage, we do know on a quantum physics level, does ionize and raise energy. So it's pretty interesting as well that was something stumbled on by Native Americans so long ago. But I agree with you that your belief in something definitely gives it power. Always. I always believe that. But
I
having
have a
said that,
question for the
I go
panel.
also believe that there's something about crystals that's scientific. I mean, we use crystals in our cell phones, in our computers, in all sorts of things because they channel energy differently. So there's a part of me that believes if everything's energy and if we channel energy, then we can channel it in a more effective way using crystals.
Right. Well, I just stumbled across in researching for a book that I'm writing that it's called the Superman theory. And it's based off of the crystals from Superman's home planet and how when they imprinted the Bible on that small quartz crystal disc, it's similar to how a majority of our Earth's surroundings is filled with quartz crystal. So it's constantly absorbing and recording what's happening, similar to the crystals in Superman. And that's how we have residual energy playing back on Earth.
I love it. That's fascinating. I like it. I want to learn more about that. Please, if you have any links to that, I would love to have them.
Yeah, it was at Southampton University. They did the experiment, and that's where they came up with the theory.
Wow. Right. Now, I have a question for the panel. And everyone out there. What do you think is everyone's affinity with wanting to have a haunted object? Why would people want to be subject to torment and demonic attacks and pain and suffering? Why?
The same reason people start smoking. It's cool.
Yeah.
And some people are addicted to the negativity of hauntings, of objects. It's like ITC. They're not looking to communicate with the highest and best. They're looking for the demons. People have addictions to these adrenaline rushes that evil and negativity give some people, just like drugs. I mean, I think people just become obsessed.
And you also have the TV shows that made it popular, in Zach's Museum and all these other museums that are out there. People are thinking that they have the next best thing to get on a TV show and become popular.
Well, let's be honest. Who did it in such a way that everybody else wants to do it?
Well, I wasn't going to name names.
The most haunted object in the world, and I'm not talking about Robert the Doll.
I don't want to.
Let's be honest. If there's one thing I really don't like about my grandparents' legacy, it's that damn museum.
And Robert the Doll is actually sweet as long as you're sweet to him first.
Just like me.
Yeah. What do you think, Nicole?
I agree. As long as you don't give it recognition and respect, I think it should be okay with anything,
Well, I wouldn't start playing patty cake with Annabelle.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting test to see who lasts the longest.
Yeah. Tammy just said a good comment. She said to see if it's real. And I think that's one reason as well. I think there are other people as well too that they want to see if it's real, and then they want to see if they have the intestinal fortitude to combat evil. Everyone is like, you know what, I'm going to take this head on, and power to them. If a lot of people think that they have the ability to combat this type of evil, and nonetheless they can't even tie their shoes right. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, for a few people in the paranormal community, the paranormal can attract damaged souls as well. And those are the ones that get hurt. So, it always amazes me how you'll have a family of four in a household, and the mother and the children are terrified out of their minds, and the father completely doesn't believe anything's happening in the house. You know, it's a subjective experience, and it amazes me.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Many of our cases, I got 5 active cases right now, and all of them are demonic in a sense. And it's always, you know, the mother and the child experiencing, but the husband hasn't experienced, except for one case. The husband may have experienced something, but it's like you said, it's all subjective. So out of these 5 cases, the probability is that the mother and child are the ones experiencing this activity, and the fathers are not. You know,
Yeah.
and I find that pretty interesting. And I go, okay, wow, that says something. I wanted to go back on something earlier from the beginning of the show. Myself and another panel of exorcists from around the world too currently are investigating the possibility of human spirits possessing individuals and attaching themselves to objects as well. So that's another interesting thing that I'm going to be doing research on. There's you know, a lot of exorcists want to see if there is a possibility that human spirits can, in fact, indeed, possess people or attach themselves to objects as well.
Well,
So that's
I
gonna be
know
pretty
that they can certainly oppress people.
Yeah.
Human spirits can start to change the way we act. And if we are open to it, or if we're going down a path similar to theirs, yeah, you can start to act like the person that used to live there. And it can become very negative and it can spiral downward very quickly. You know, I saw something earlier. Let me see if I
Yeah, I
can
was going
find
to say,
it.
we have a few questions if you want me to go through
Yeah,
those.
I've seen a huge surge recently on people trying to sell haunted items. How many actually are, I don't really know, but there are definitely become a fascination with the paranormal. Yeah, like I said earlier, please don't buy these things, because 99 times out of 100, it isn't actually haunted. You're just being ripped off. The greatest forgeries in the world right now are sports memorabilia, because they're so easy to fake. But I would guess that the second one would probably be these haunted objects, you know.
Okay. And Karina wants to know, how do objects get haunted?
Again, for me, many times I believe it's our fears manifesting in that object. But sometimes, as the panel has said, it can be because, well, in Philip's case, it was a little boy who loved his sister. And when he died, he attached himself to something she loved, so he could be a part of it, a part of her life. So that's mine. How would anybody else answer that one? Nicole, why don't we start with you, because you're so quiet.
Oh boy. I was thinking maybe they could be ritually by rituals. Could go in the wrong way, that could cause it to be evil in that way. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like voodoo dolls. You know, the intention is there. Those fascinate me. These dolls that are used in ritual fascinate me, because often they will use parts of the human that they're trying to curse. And to me, that's a like quantum entanglement. We're taking some of you, putting it on something else, and what we do to that something else, because you're attached to it, will then hurt you as well. And that fascinates me. That I find very interesting. I'm not a fan of magic, but that fascinates me.
Yeah, I know there are some theories out there that objects can become haunted based on their environment, similar to absorbing residual energy, or similar, like in serial murder cases, the victim can attach itself to the knife.
Really?
If that's what used. There's several theories about that. Or
I would have gone with psychometry on that one, because it's such a traumatic event. It would have left an imprint on something like that. I can't imagine a human being being victimized by a knife and attaching themselves to their murder weapon. That's something I would like to find out about.
Yeah, I've seen some studies on it where it's like if someone died or tragically died near an object, they attach themselves to the closest object.
It's like, is that like an imprint, like imprinted themselves? Yeah.
But an imprint wouldn't be
An attachment.
an attachment. It would be an energy imprint and not an intelligent, conscious attachment. Would you say? If it's just the energy.
Yeah.
Now is that something, Philip, like you can pick up on? Let's say, for example, you're working on a case and there's an imprint, and God forbid, that obviously the murder weapon's going to be in the police locker, but in all chance case that you come across, are you able to pick up on the individual?
Sometimes you have to really concentrate and know how to discern the way your body feels with different energies. It's like when I make a spirit connection, my body does something different from just like a higher vibrational entity compared to a lower vibrational entity. Your body can feel it in a different way, and you have to know yourself well enough to be able to discern which is which. And that takes practice and study, but your body is your best ghost detector when you know how to use it.
I love that. I love that word.
Tools.
I love that word,
with
discern. I use that a lot when I provide chaplaincy and work on all these cases. That's such a powerful word, discernment, being able to distinguish good from evil, and you have to have a good moral conscience in a sense, and you have to have a really good spiritual connection to be able to have a good discernment. So I think that's really important for people to understand. So you got to have discernment.
But I had something happen Saturday night. I usually, if something very, very negative is at a location, I can feel it physically right away. Like sometimes even pulling in a driveway, I can feel it. Saturday night, we were almost finished with the investigation, and all of a sudden, I knew something bad was there. And then it started choking me. I had to run out the door and go outside. And it was like that. And I was so angry with myself that I didn't pick it up sooner. But I was having so much fun at this location because it was such a historical, wonderful place. But I didn't pick up on it until it was on me. But I was fine. I ran outside and did what I needed to do and went back in. But things can happen in an instant.
That's true.
Tammy Petty made a comment here that I wanted to just quickly touch on. She says, I think equipment is the best because you can't prove anything with a feeling. And I agree. I don't ever just follow feelings. I don't trust psychics. I'm a psychic. I don't trust us without evidence. Yes, some people use equipment. I am not comfortable with equipment. I'm low tech, like my grandfather. But I do gather evidence. And I'm my background's psychology. I'm a therapist, and I use that. But I also use my abilities. I just don't believe anything until I've then looked for the evidence to support what I'm feeling. So yeah, these tools can be wonderful. I've seen them used well. I'm just not good at them.
Tammy, there is no.
Oh, and one other thing. How do you know? I'm sorry, but how do you know that you're not the one influencing the equipment with your energy? That's the reason I'm hesitant about those things. How do we know we're not manifesting what we want to come through on that equipment?
What we're doing mainly is using equipment to monitor environmental changes that are anomalous. There's no equipment that's going to say, "Oh my God, there's a ghost there." It doesn't exist. But we're tracking radiation spikes out of nowhere. Barometric pressure drops out of nowhere. These are things that we're monitoring as far as equipment goes. And did we get a possible EVP when that spike in the radiation happened? That's how we're tracking things, or supposed to be tracking things. The equipment is data collecting. It's not proving anything.
Mm-hmm. And I like that. I like that a lot. This question has been asked twice by Denise Lanza. What is your opinion on spirit boards? Denise, obviously you haven't heard me speak before. Not a fan. Not a fan at all of any spirit communication, unless it's direct. And by direct, I mean either you're praying to a loved one, wishing them well, whatever. Or in my case, yeah, sometimes I enter a place, or Philip enters a place, or Nicole and Heather, and we communicate because we can. But I'm not a fan of EVPs. Yes, I know everyone else here on the panel loves them. And I'm not a fan of any form of spirit communication, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's a slippery slope. And having said that, I'm going to leave it to somebody else to answer the question as well. Guys, I apologize. I'm going to get going. I am sick as a dog. I'm here in Lima, Peru. It's wintertime. And I'm worn out. I apologize. Thank you all for joining us this evening, our audience. And you guys are the best. Thank you so much. I'm going to go. I know that this is in good hands. Oh, I'm going to bed.
Feel better, Chris. Get some rest.
I'm going to have some tea with cinnamon and cloves, and then I'm going to bed. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, Chris.
I don't know how to get out of this, so I'm just going to.
I'll remove you.
Oh, you're stuck now.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the right hands, a Ouija board can be useful in the sense if you're trained and you're a good psychic, but I don't recommend it in the sense that, there is a fad with everybody using Ouija boards. I'll tell you one thing, though, it does keep us employed, and the unfortunate part is that's the truth.
Yeah,
that's the truth. It does keep us employed, and that sounds horrible, but the fact of the matter is that there are people out there who, look, sometimes you'll get something and sometimes you won't. And I think the biggest misconception is that people get is like, if you use a Ouija board, something's going to happen right away. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. Spirits are not confined to time and space. And especially if you reach a dark demonic object, it may take months, it may take even years for that activity to manifest. So just be careful, cognizant of your environment, and just know that if you're going to use a Ouija board, just protect yourself. That's all. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I know there are people out there that like to use Ouija boards. I see this thing on YouTube where a lot of people are using Ouija boards and they're doing satanic rituals, and just don't do it, people.
Make sure you have our email address.
Yeah.
Our holy one.
Yeah.
And you got we've talked about this before. You sit down at a Ouija board. Are there any spirits out there that would like to communicate with us? Sure, there are. Murderers, rapists, bank robbers. There's all kinds of spirits willing to talk to you. And how many of these people that use these when they're finished close that door? None. So that's like going on vacation and leaving your front door open. You don't know who's going to be in your house when you get back. I mean, it's the same concept.
Yeah. And not every, and that doesn't mean that something's always going to happen. There are times when people have used the Ouija board and nothing happens. Lucky. Good. That's a good thing. But for those of you who are struggling emotionally, who are struggling with your feelings and suffering from depression, suffering from anxiety, are going through a divorce, are going through child custody battles, or you're a psychic that is still developing your abilities and your gifts, and you don't have proper control of them or haven't fully developed them yet, I would advise to stay away from the Ouija board, because that's just going to be a headache within itself. And that doesn't mean that you're going to get possessed. It just means that there's also potential as a psychic who doesn't have a developed ability that you're going to get overwhelmed with all these spirits, and they're going to be talking to you, and you just don't know how to shut it off. We get that a lot as well.
Amen.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to set your boundaries when you're developing, it can really do a number on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, just even casework in itself, could just take a toll on you. Yeah. And you're not necessarily dealing with the entity, but just the energy behind the caseloads. I find myself many times extremely tired and exhausted when having to do an intake interview and talk to the people about these traumatic experiences that they're going through. It takes a toll on you. That in itself is a different energy. And so if you can feel that energy exteriorly, imagine being in that environment with people who are actually suffering from affliction. That's way too much to take in.
Okay, and we do have a few more questions that I want to get to because I know both Nicole and Father Ken need to leave early, and we need to save about 5 to 10 minutes to go over the questions from our trivia contest and pick a winner.
Okay.
So, wait, so real quick, Robert the Doll, he is a doll. He's on display at a museum in Key West. You can go see him there. He's open whenever the museum's open. Essentially, he was a doll that was given to a young boy. He carried it everywhere he went, became really attached to the doll, even carried it into adulthood, which caused a lot of problems with him and his wife. And every time something bad happened in his life, he said Robert did it. And that's just the a short version of the story. But if you Google Robert the Doll, I'm sure you're going to come up with hundreds of responses for that. Okay. Then Father Kenneth, these were both for you. Why is it usually the fathers that don't experience the activity?
I cannot give you a definitive answer, but what I can tell you is that mostly as men, there is this ego that we personify in a sense as a protector, and so I think many times the dads are not attacked because of that strong male presence. Most of the time, from my experience with these darker cases, is these entities are going to attack the weaker family. I'm not saying that women are weaker in the sense, that's not what I'm saying, but there's a maternal connection. And so they're bonded with their children. And so a lot of these entities tend to attack them a little more because they're a lot more sensitive. I believe that mothers are a lot more sensitive, when it comes to these things than fathers are. Then there are cases when, the dads may experience some of these things, but out of the 40 cases I've worked this year, I think I've only had one dad say that, yeah, I heard something fall on the wall in the kitchen, but that's it. I think it's the maternalistic nature of the mother and them guarding their children and protecting their children. That's why they feel these things. And that's just my opinion.
We're working with a case right now where it's a family of 4, husband, wife, daughter, and son. Yeah. The activity is centered around the teenage daughter. These are very highly educated professional people. And the father is so supportive. He believes the daughter. He welcomed us in to do this investigation. It's so nice to see when it's not happening to everyone in the home that the rest of the family supports the person that it's happening to. And he will probably change his mind when he sees our evidence. So.
Well, and that's a good thing too, because you have an anchor there. Now you have someone who hasn't experienced it, but you now have an anchor that's fully supportive, that's fully loving and accepting of what everyone else in his family is experiencing. You can use that as an advantage because that's going to build positivity. That's going to build a better environment. It's a beautiful thing.
And they're going to need it.
Yeah.
Yep. And Nicole, do you have any opinion on why the dads don't experience much?
I think because they're always gone. They're not there all the time. So that is my short opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said too.
Yeah.
You read my mind. And then the other question came from Tammy. Were the mothers in your case is the same age?
As a matter of fact, I have 3 mothers that are approximately the same age, and one of the other mothers, she's she's over 18 years old, but not over 21. So difference in age. But they all have a commonality, which they have all experienced a traumatic events. And without getting too descriptive, there was abuse. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And just going through the questions here. If one were to start collecting haunted objects to keep it out of the hands of innocent people, how would one go about doing it safely, such as avoiding minimal contact with the object or setting it down on a shelf?
Well, what's your intention for collecting haunted objects? Why do you want them in the first place? I mean, ask yourself that question. And like when I brought this doll home, I took precautions. I had it in a container with tourmaline and other things that are supposedly protective. I set an intention that you're going to stay in this box, whatever's in here, and you're not coming out until I tell you to come out. So there's precautions you got to take. But ask yourself, why are you wanting to collect things in the first place?
Yeah. And that is the biggest question. Why would you want to collect it? Oh, Anthony, right? Oh, hey, Anthony. I think Anthony's one of our members too, out in the Midwest. Anthony is a real knowledgeable person too, and I like talking to him. But like Wyatt said, you just have to ask yourself the question, like, why would you want to collect it? I mean, for me, the reason why I took the object here is because I wanted to make sure that it was out of, people's way, that, they were out of harm and they were out of danger. That was my sole intention. And after I received it, I prayed the rosary. I did all these different things. And honestly, I put it away somewhere nice and secure, out of sight, out of mind. Forgot that I even had it until you guys mentioned it earlier. So.
Oh, that's what Chris said. He's like, he goes, Father Kenneth has one, bring him on. When we were trying to figure out who to bring onto the show.
Yeah. I figured that's what it was. I go, oh, yeah. Then, but in all honesty, these things are out there. I mean, there are haunted objects out there, and we're not saying that all of it is fake, but precaution.
Yeah, he says he doesn't collect. A friend was asking.
Sure.
Sure.
It was for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Sure.
I'm going to message you.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us. Would you say that some haunted objects react differently when others, because of their energy or life situation, leaves them vulnerable? I think we did discuss this a little bit, but I didn't know if anyone had any more to add to it.
Ask Stephanie about her mirror her daughter got.
Oh.
Ooh,
So Stephanie should have been on the show.
I tried to get her to talk about the mirror. I think she was doing a Warren case tonight. I'm like, you really need to talk about this mirror.
Yeah, I was on the interview for a little bit, but I had to jump off. My dinner arrived, and then I had to get ready for this.
Your dinner arrived. How nice.
Yeah. Well, it's almost my dinner time here too. I mean, it's 6:20 here in beautiful California.
Sick.
91 degrees. I mean, nice.
Poor thing.
Right? I get to go surfing all year long. That's horrible.
Yeah, we're hunkering down for the potential hurricane that's supposed to hit us over the weekend.
Oh.
To answer her question,
Yeah, getting back to her question, we all got off topic there.
It's a family environment, just in case.
yeah, I mean, are you a positive person, a positive energy? Do you live in the light, or are you a negative, nasty Nelly? I mean, with the negative energy. I think things react to us the way we react, the way we are. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Intentions. It's all about intentions and intentionality behind it. And sometimes for me, I just kind of play dumb, and it's like, okay, cool, if it's haunted, whatever, it's not bothering me. I put it away, and if something happens, then okay, well, let me try to get out the natural stuff first. And if I can't explain it, like if my dog starts levitating, then we know we have an issue. So far that hasn't happened yet.
Probably a lot of you probably got this email a few months ago. This lady looking for connections to haunted objects for a television show, a new TV show, Haunted Objects or something. Yeah. And I sent her to Stephanie about this mirror, and she wanted her to come to the casting call thing, whatever. They were traveling around to try to connect with people with haunted objects. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember that email.
Yeah.
Actually, since I have Nicole and Philip on, what is a subjective medium?
Ooh.
Well, you don't want to be subjective if you're a medium, because that means you're just interpreting it in whatever way you want. You want to be, preferably an evidential medium where you get evidence that only the sitter can identify that it's the communicator. Subjective is, there's objective, subjective. You don't really want to be either of those if you're a medium, in my opinion. You want to be evidential. Mm-hmm. Get the facts, something that's provable, something that's, that the person can say, yes, that's them. Mm-hmm. I hope that made sense. I think that's what she's asking. I'm not.
I think so too. It's so hard with StreamYard, because sometimes the questions that pop up are people replying to other people's comments, not really directed towards us. So go ahead, Nicole.
How I usually connect, if I connect with their energy, and right away, and if not, they say I just don't have anything for you right now. and maybe at a later time. Because sometimes I show them stuff in a dream. So, or I'll hear their messages.
Mhm.
Like last night, I gave a reading and I said he was always eating microwave popcorn. And she said, "Oh my God, yes, that's him." And I said, "And he didn't like to wear socks." I mean, the evidential things that she knew about her dad,
Mhm.
about the ring on his right hand, and things that I would have had no clue because I'd never met the woman before. These evidential things.
That's such a beautiful thing, like I listen to you guys talk and I go, that's amazing. Like all three of you, you guys have like these psychic abilities. I don't have it. I've been told I'm an empath, but my battle is a little different. I deal with darker demonic forces.
Yeah.
So and someone said, that's a gift within itself. But I love the fact that you guys are so compassionate and you guys are so knowledgeable about what you do, and you guys are well grounded. I mean, that's really important, and this is great information for everyone out there.
Being empathic can be exhausting if you don't know what you're doing. So you know what you're doing, especially if you're working with all those negative entities. Being empathic, I mean, you could be in the bed with your head under the cover. I mean, exhausted if you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah. And these things can attack your physical ailments as well. Like for example, I'm a wounded warrior and I have some disabilities and I have some. I'm diabetic by nature, right? Only one in my family, but there's been times when I'm working on a case or I'm doing something, and all of a sudden, I was on a case and my blood sugars were fine, 120.
Yeah.
Fine. I worked the case. My blood sugars dropped to 15. I turned pale, almost had to go to the doctor. So when you're working with these energies, you have to be really, really careful. They can attack your physical being as well.
Yeah, they're going to go for the most vulnerable spot, the weakest link in your chain. I mean, that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah.
Okay, Aurora wants to know what's the best way to destroy haunted objects. I know Chris mentioned earlier it's best not to destroy the objects and to bury them, but I don't know if you guys have any other ways to get rid of them.
Don't collect them at first. just don't collect them. Easy peasy, right?
I know there's some binding rituals you can do to bind an object and bind the energy. I don't know how to do it. I know people that do know how to do it. I wouldn't burn it. I wouldn't throw it in the trash. I think probably proper burial with I don't know what the proper way would be, but that to me, I think would be the safest thing, somewhere where no one will ever dig it up. Where you bury your ex, put it out there.
So like the pet cemetery out in Vegas.
Oh.
Where the mob buried their bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, and I wish this would have come up when Chris was still on, but do you believe the Amityville Horror House is really haunted?
I believe so. I believe that it's still haunted. I believe that there is an energy on there. I do believe that there is just something on there that's unexplainable. I mean, time and time again, there have been families that have experienced many different things. Now, is that because of self-manifestation and they bought the house knowing that that's where it happened, and now they've created this vast array of mental stories of the demonic and all that? Who knows? But I do believe there's something there. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know there's something there.
Like this house I was at Saturday night, I mean, there are blood stains all in the hardwood floors from the Civil War. I mean, and this was people living in this place later on. I mean, if I was looking at that every day, how do you not get that out of your head?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thought process of negativity right there, looking down at, and knowing soldier just bled out right here in this very spot that I've got the TV sitting. I mean, it's all in your head.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Jeff, another one of our members. Have you noticed when people sell haunted items, the more evil the price increases?
Yes, I have a haunted pencil here that I'm selling for $500.
But if it had a demon, it would be $1,000.
Yeah, but I don't want them in the house, so it's just haunted. So contact me if you want me to ship it to you. PayPal.
My mouse has a legion of demons inside of it. So
Oh, that's about 20 grand right there.
right there.
Is this what happens when Chris gets off the show?
Yeah.
He saw
Yeah,
a doll with a succubus for 6. Somebody may enjoy that. I don't know. They're freaks out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And Becca, you had asked for the link. I'm posting the links in the comments now. So just go ahead and fill out the one for assistance. And I know you were asking for help with your abilities, and we'll get you in contact with the proper person. And we have 3 more quick questions before we go, since we're cutting today early. Would you recommend your house be cleansed after picking up and collecting antiques that may have entities attached to them?
That's something in paranormal cases. Sometimes I do ask, do you own antiques? Do you have any new antiques since this activity started? That's kind of a general question I just kind of throw in there just for my own personal knowledge. And if they say yes, if we get to the site, we'll kind of pay attention to it, maybe see if it's got any high EMF readings or anything. You know, it's just for our documentation.
Normally, what I like to do is if I pick up an item right outside, you know, I'll pray for it, I'll bless it, and I'll say something, you know, whatever the intention is, you know, I cleanse it, and, you know, and give it a new intention. I believe for me, before you come into the house with that object, you know, do it outside. Do it outside, clean, open air. Set your intentions right away. Set the boundaries, because you don't want to walk into the house with that item, and now all of that's gonna, you know, excuse the French, it's gonna cause a conniption. So it's just bless the item before you bring it inside the house. Set your true intentions behind it, because you don't know the original intention behind it, and it may not be nothing bad, but still, you want to stand your ground.
Okay, and where'd it go? Okay, Bob wants to know, do you think supplying low frequencies through a signal generator could increase activity like an EMF pump would?
We've done that. We've used the sin wave before through an amplifier, and just experimenting. I don't think it made any difference. Sometimes you can put a frequency through to give spirits a vibration to communicate through audibly, because sometimes they need a frequency to maybe create an EVP. That's a theory. We've done that. And you got to be careful if it's something like an infrasound, it can get false negatives, like, you know, the wrong feeling, and, you know, create your frontal lobe to do weird things to make you sense things that aren't real. So you got to be careful what the low frequency is.
Mhm.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah. Okay, and our last question is, do you think it's because of the films that people want to try to buy Dybbuk boxes and open them not knowing if they are real or not?
I mean, I think movies and TV do have a big influence on a lot of these things. I mean, it's the paranormal, it's the unknown. You know, people want to see. I know for a fact that sometimes I'm like, cool, you know, I'm working on a case and I go, there's nothing going on, but, you know, just for once, I want to see if there's something really happening, just to pique my interest. And I think we're all guilty of that in a sense, but I do think that it's TV, it's media, it's movies, it's Hollywood, it's other groups that are just pushing this stuff out. So
I've got a thought on these Dybbuk boxes. Are these Dybbuk boxes a physical piece of something, a place to focus your intentions on? For example, like if I'm doing a meditation and I have an imaginary basket under my chair, I'm taking all the things that happened to me today and I'm putting them in that basket so I don't have to think about them right now during this meditation. It'll still be there when I'm ready for it. All the crap that happened in the day, I can deal with it later. But for right now, I'm putting it in that basket under my chair. Now, what if I take and hand you that basket? Is that the same as in a Dybbuk box? People have put their crap into this box as an intention. So I don't understand. I mean, is it supposed to hold a demon, a spirit, or I don't, you know, what are they?
So in ancient Judaic times, a Dybbuk is actually it's a Jewish word, Hebrew word for demon or entity. And so the idea behind the original Dybbuk box is that the Dybbuk box was used by Adolf Hitler to cause pain and discontent, and that's what happened during the Holocaust. And so the Dybbuk box is a box that's supposed to hold an entity that's masked and filled with a lot of negative energy, or can be controlled by an individual to cause havoc upon another individual or a society. Honestly, that just seems like too much power.
Yeah.
It seems like it'd be too much to even want to control and contain. So why even get a Dybbuk box? I mean,
So is that a
It's just-
tulpa, a thought-formed entity? It's not a.
it's supposed to be a real Hebrew demon,
Yeah.
according to ancient Judaic text.
How do you
But
get in that damn box, though? I mean, how do you get a demon in a box?
yeah, well, you just pop it open and it pops.
Send him to his room.
I mean, if you can control one of those, you're doing pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't understand the whole concept behind these people wanting these horribly haunted Dybbuk boxes. It's like,
Mhm.
you even know what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to go through real quick. For those of you who don't know, the Warren Files did run a quick trivia contest for a giveaway of a postcard that was sent by Ed and Lorraine Warren to Chris. It's a beautiful postcard that has, I believe it was an Irish or Scottish setting. And I'm just going to quickly go over the questions and answers and then announce the winner. And then we'll be closing it out because two of our panelists tonight do have to go to do another show right after this. But the first question was, what was Chris McKinnell's first case with Ed and Lorraine Warren? Anyone on our panel know that one? Go ahead, Nicole.
Annabelle? But yes,
It was the haunting in Connecticut.
Connecticut. I was going to say the
Yeah.
haunting in Connecticut.
He was 16. What branch of the military was Ed Warren in?
Navy.
Okay. Name 3 cases that Ed and Lorraine Warren did.
Criminal haunting, the haunting in Connecticut, and the devil made me do it.
Yeah. Do you have 3 others? Anyone else? Nicole, Philip?
Is the Conjuring House, is that Connecticut? No, that's
No,
Rhode
that's
Island.
different.
That's Rhode Island. So, yeah, that's.
Amityville. I can't say that word. Sorry. Amityville?
Yes.
Mhm.
Amityville, yep. Okay. And
Maurice,
When
in
were-
the Maurice Theriault case,
when were Ed and Lorraine Warren married?
1938.
I thought you were going to ask the people in the audience questions, not us.
No, I'm going to ask you guys because they've already had a chance to answer the questions.
Oh, okay. I was like, I thought you were like doing a.
I'm throwing you
Okay.
guys under the bus.
I'm already under the back wheel now. Okay.
1945.
1945, May 22nd. What was the name of the family in the Conjuring movies?
Perrin.
Perrin.
Perron, however you say it.
Yeah, the Perron
This
family.
this question was a visual, but I'm sure you guys can guess it from what I'm going to describe. It was a staircase with a little boy peeking out.
Yeah, Amityville haunting.
House.
Yeah.
What book is Chris McKinnell currently reading on Patreon?
Demonologist.
The Demonologist.
Yeah.
What movie did Lorraine Warren have a cameo in?
The Conjuring.
Conjuring.
What was Ed Warren's real name or birth name?
Dee Warren.
Miney?
Warren's the middle name.
Oh, Warren's
Miney
his middle
Warren.
name.
Miney
It was-
Warren Beatty.
Edward Warren Miney.
Mine.
Okay.
And for 5 bonus points, when was the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research founded, and who founded it?
2014. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Lorraine Warren and Chris McKinnell.
Yep. Okay, perfect. And we had 18 entries. More than 156 points were handed out. And Carrie S. was our winner. I used a random generator to pull a number out. Carrie, I will be sending you an email tomorrow letting you know that you won so I can get your address. And then Joe Frankie will be mailing it out to you since he has possession of the postcard. Okay, so and then our typical closing stuff. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. But before we go, I want to make sure that my guests get to let everyone know where they can find them as well, not just the foundation.
You can find my page. It's called The Paranormal Connection. You can also, that's my group and my page, or you can just find me, Kenneth Torres, with the Solomonic Order of St. Michael the Archangel. So that's my religious order. That's where you can find me.
Miss Nicole.
I'm always here on Facebook. Or YouTube.
Right.
But here on Facebook.
And you have a show coming up at 10 o'clock, don't you, Nicole?
I'm Paranormal Teen Radio with Haunted Connections, and I'm going to
Yeah.
interview Connor Keaton.
Oh yeah, I do have a radio show too. It's called Enter the Dark as well with Dalton Harold.
And Philip.
Heather and I run Ghost Education 101. You can find me there sometimes, and Heather and I trade off. She does more than I do, actually, because I can't run StreamYard. It's too complicated for me because I'm old. Also, my team is Georgia Paranormal Investigations.com, but we're on Facebook. We've got a lot of really good EVPs in our last investigation. You can go in there and see the videos, but you know, I'm here if anybody wants to ask me anything, or just message me.
Okay, and I'm Heather Lee. You can find me on Facebook at Dr. Heather Lee, and of course on the Warren Foundation as well. And then, like Philip said, I host a show with him, and then also before Ghost Education 101, I host Exploring the Paranormal. Okay, you can also follow us on Instagram at Warren Files. You can catch the replay tomorrow on YouTube at the Warren Files. And then Dalton just sent me a message. Make sure you subscribe to our Patreon account for exclusive access to content. You can find us on Patreon at the Warren Legacy Foundation. And Dalton says the next episode of the Warren Files Declassified, which can only be found on Patreon, covers a satanic idol. So make sure you go check that out and sign up for our Patreon alerts and have exclusive access to a lot of content and behind the scenes work. We have Pinterest at the Warren Files. Also, we have a Teespring store with branded items. There's the link there, and the link is also on our Facebook page. Then make sure to join us June 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern for our Southern Hospitality Show. This is a rescheduled show, but all of our members from the Southern United States and Southeastern United States will be invited to be on there to talk about their role in the paranormal and their experiences. So thank you.
If you want to call the Haunted Doll Show, just go to his Facebook page and you can order one.
I want one.
Thank you, everyone.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Let me get some dinner and get ready for the next show.
Bye. Have fun, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.